In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to properly master project management. Learning the theory, learning the fundamentals is important. It's critically important. However, it's only a part of the process. If you learn the theory and then do nothing with it, you haven't actually learned or improved your performance as a project manager. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about my own process for learning new things, the same process I've taught over 25,000 students. So what do you need to do to properly master project management? Well, there's 4 key steps. First one is to understand the theory. There's no way around it. You need to understand the underlying concepts and theories that have been documented in the PMBOK. It's a framework for managing projects that's been built by hundreds of industry professionals. And the first step is always going to be to understand the theory. The second thing you need to do, which is the step most people miss, is you need to apply it. You need to apply it in your job. You need to apply it on real world projects to understand how these theoretical processes work in practice, because I can assure you it's going to be different to what you anticipated. The next thing, you need to do this, but not intentionally, is you're going to make mistakes doing these things. You need to document these mistakes and understand why you made them. And then step 4 is you want to use your mistakes to improve your understanding of the underlying theory and then continually iterate through this process. As I said, this is the process I use for learning new concepts, and I'm going to talk about how I used it to understand the procurement process on construction projects. Procurement is something I've been involved in quite a bit during my career, and it is a critically important part of project success, and there's a lot to it. There's a lot of different elements to procurement, and this approach, I'm going to talk about how I used it to master procurement on construction projects. Step 1 of the process is to understand. You need to understand the core concepts, but also why they're important. That means understanding the theoretical concepts in the PMBOK, something like project scope management, but then you need to understand why it's important. Why something is important? Because it's going to relate to helping you achieve the project objective. So if we're talking about a construction project, that's going to be delivering the project under budget, on schedule, to the required quality standards, without harming anyone. So these processes, all the steps we go through when we manage a project, they need to relate to the project objectives. And importantly, you need to understand exactly why you're doing anything. So don't be afraid, particularly when someone more senior tells you to do something. You should always feel comfortable asking why, and you should always understand why you're doing something. And you should always understand how what you're doing relates to the success of the project. So understand the theoretical concepts and also understand how they relate to project success. For example, when I was learning procurement, I was involved in setting up procurement for a project. Now, it sort of made sense why you have to set up procurement. What didn't make sense to me is why there was so much emphasis made on properly assessing and finding high quality subcontractors and suppliers. And I asked my manager to explain to me it's because such a large portion of the project scope is outsourced. Effectively, we're completely reliant on our subcontractors and supply chain. While contracts can help us motivate them, ultimately, if they stuff up the project, we're going to stuff up the project. So when you're planning procurement, you have to put such an emphasis on choosing the correct subcontractors and suppliers. So I understood this emphasis in the planning procurement, and then I also understood how it related to project success. Once you understand the theory, the next thing you need to do is you need to apply it. You need to take these underlying theoretical concepts and put them in practice on a real project. And what you're going to find is you're going to find that while process might sound straightforward and simple, when you go to apply it in practice, it's not going to be like that. But only by applying are you going to enhance your understanding of the theory and actually learn how to do something. Because remember, all these processes, all this theory doesn't count for anything if you don't put it into practice. For me, I was involved in the planning procurement part of the project, understood how to plan procurement, and I understood why we needed to plan procurement. Then the next thing I needed to do is I needed to put it into practice. So I started with helping create a work breakdown structure, helping create a delivery methodology, helping create a procurement schedule, and then writing scopes of work for different tender packages. As you go through and put these processes into action, you're going to make mistakes. Now, when I talk about mistakes, yes, you're going to make some big mistakes. You should obviously try to avoid those. But when I talk about mistakes, I'm talking about not completing a process perfectly. So you should hold yourself to a high standard. You should understand, for example, with me going through a procurement, what does perfect procurement look like and where did I deviate away from this? That's what I'm talking about mistakes. So you should, because you understand the theory, because you have a good understanding of the goal, you should have a good understanding of what process implemented perfectly look like. You should be very aware of when you're deviating away from the standard. You should be keeping track of this because using these mistakes, you're going to be able to prevent doing the same thing in the future. And you're effectively, this is where you improve as a project manager, from understanding what perfect looks like and understanding where you've deviated away from the standard. For me, with mastering procurement, the first time I was working on procurement on a major project and I was preparing these tender packages, I was looking at the schedule, the dates we'd been given, and effectively I rushed putting together a tender package. The design wasn't finalized. We weren't actually in a position to procure the works. And because I was madly rushing to meet this date in the schedule, tender package had a whole lot of gaps in it because we didn't have a complete design. Then it turned out the schedule was actually wrong. It ended up being delayed. And so we issued this tender, got a whole lot of variations, and basically rushed for no reason. The lesson I learned from this is before starting procurement, you really have to make an upfront investment in the schedule. And if you're going to rush procurement, you need to understand there's going to be a cost involved. And if you need to accelerate to meet the project schedule and it's critical path activity, then it's probably the right decision. But if you don't need to do that, you should understand where your package fits into the overall schedule. Now, this was a lesson for me. I took the lesson, I've integrated it into my understanding of procurement and understood the importance of setting up a proper procurement schedule. So that's what you want to be doing. You want to be making your absolute best effort to put the underlying theory into practice, applying it in your job. You want to be super aware of when you're making mistakes and use this to improve your understanding of the process. So the final step in this process is just to take any errors, document them, write them down, and also understand why you made the mistake and use it to improve your understanding of the process. And this was going to help you become a wise project manager. So wise meaning you've learned from your previous mistakes to improve your understanding of the process. As you go through your career, as you get more experience working on projects, you need to be iterating through this process. So you need to be going through this continual process of learning theory, applying it, making mistakes, or understanding why you didn't complete the process perfectly, noting down these mistakes, documenting them, and then iterating through the process, using the mistake to improve your process, working out where you need to learn more theory, and just continually iterating through this process to become a better project manager.